Hey everybody, welcome to video 72. So here we're going to be focusing mainly on what's taking place during fertilization of an oocyte by a spermatozoa and some of the immediate developments that take place around that time. So fertilization is going to occur when you have the sperm and egg combining, and they're going to fuse their nuclei to turn their haploid nuclei into a diploid zygote. Remember, haploid meaning half DNA, diploid is going to be your full set of DNA, and so that's why it's important that sperm and egg both are haploid, so that you have the right amount of DNA in the offspring. At ejaculation, there's going to be hundreds of millions of sperm that are going to be released. And so when we're dealing with ejaculation here for fertilization, it's basically a numbers game, especially in humans. So for the male, millions of those sperm that are released are immediately going to die because the pH of the vagina is about 3.8, so very, very acidic. Beyond that, millions of them are going to get blocked by the cervix, which is a very narrow region, and so it's going to be very few that actually end up making it through the cervix. Beyond that, there are a lot of leukocytes or white blood cells that are going to be attacking anything that hits the edges of the uterus, and so thousands of the sperm cells are going to be destroyed by the leukocytes, so that by the time we get to the fallopian tubes, and especially the distal ends of the fallopian tube where you want fertilization to occur, you're going to be left with only a few thousand out of those millions that were released initially. And so the time it takes for those sperm to travel from ejaculation to the distal fallopian tubes typically is going to vary between 30 minutes to 2 hours. Sperm do fairly well in this environment. They can survive about 3 to 5 days here. But the oocytes that are being ovulated and are traveling down the fallopian tubes only survive about 24 hours in this environment. So that means you have about a 3-day window for intercourse to take place for you to be able to get pregnant, which is one of the reasons why it's very difficult for couples to get pregnant, is unless you have an intimate knowledge of when ovulation is taking place and everything like that. It can be very difficult to make sure that you are within that 3-day window. So on the egg side, you have this oocyte, the egg cell, and it's going to have 2 protective layers around it. The first is going to be the corona radiata. That layer is going to be releasing these chemical attractants. And so the sperm are going to run into these chemical attractants, and that's basically going to direct the sperm towards the oocyte. And once those sperm make contact with the oocyte, they're going to be releasing those lysozymes that are found in that acrosome cap of the spermatozoa. And the purpose of those lysozymes is to start to degrade the corona radiata and clear a path for any sperm that are following that sperm. So it's never actually the first sperm to reach the oocyte. It's a common misconception. That's actually going to fertilize that oocyte. It's going to be a group effort for all these sperm to eventually have one that's coming towards the middle to the end to actually make it in. The second layer is going to be the zona pellucida. It's going to be deep to the corona radiata, and this is going to be the layer where sperm are going to bind and release their lysozymes to degrade this layer once you have a sperm that makes it past the corona radiata. And they're going to degrade this layer until a single sperm is going to reach the plasma membrane, which sits deep to the zona pellucida. That sperm is going to bind to that plasma membrane, and it's going to be the one that's going to get to fertilize that oocyte. Also here, like I mentioned, it's never the first sperm that reaches the ovum that's going to get to fertilize the egg. And it's also why males that have a very low sperm count can have difficulties having a child, because when you get to those, if you don't have those hundreds of millions of sperm being released, you're having very few sperm actually reach the oocyte, which can make it very, very difficult to penetrate through those 2 layers to actually get to the plasma membrane. So here, just in diagram form, you can see what this looks like here. All these sperm attracted by those chemical attractants are going to release those lysozymes to break through this layer here, trying to get to that zona pellucida. Eventually, you are going to have contact with it, where they're going to continue secreting those lysozymes. They're going to break down that membrane, eventually expose the oocyte plasma membrane, that is the cell membrane of the egg. Then a single sperm is going to succeed in burrowing through and make contact with the plasma membrane. It'll fuse with the plasma membrane, and it's going to release its nucleus into the oocyte. And so once we have fertilization of an ovum by a sperm, you want to prevent polyspermy, which is where multiple sperm cells are going to be fertilizing a single egg cell. And so there are two things that the now zygote is going to do. First is known as the fast block. So immediately when a sperm fuses with the plasma membrane of the oocyte, the permeability, or how much or how well it allows things to cross through, in particular with sodium ions, is going to change. So if you remember back to our nervous system when we were going over an action potential and those charges flipping and things like that, it's a very similar thing that's taking place here. And so that permeability is going to change immediately and prevent further fusion. And it's going to be lasting about 1 minute that it's able to prevent polyspermy. And what it's going to do is allow for an influx of calcium ions. And then after that, you have the cortical reaction, otherwise known as the slow block. You're going to have these proteins being released between the zelupilocida and the oocyte membrane, which is going to basically kick off any of the other sperm that have not fertilized the egg yet. And it's going to cause degradation of the sperm's receptors on the oocyte membrane so that no more receptors can accept any other sperm that may be still trying to make their way in. Okay, and then the zygote, after fertilization, is going to contain all the genetic material needed to create a human. Like we mentioned, this is going to be a diploid offspring because you take the two haploid gametes, put them together, that gives you your full set, your diploid offspring. Mitosis will begin immediately, and in about 3 days, you're going to get what's known as a morula, which is a very solid ball of cells. And this is still happening within the fallopian tube, so that by the time that embryo reaches the uterus, it's further developed into kind of a hollow ball of cells, but there's still a clump on one end known as a blastocyst. And so here's what it looks like starting. Mitosis immediately starts. One cell divides to 2, divides to 4, divides to 8, 16. And then you get this blastocyst here, where it looks hollow, but there's still a clump located on one side, which will be important when we talk about things developing from here. Since we're talking about infertility and sterility a little bit here, we'll mention in vitro fertilization, or IVF. Comes from the Latin word for in glass. So it's in glass fertilization. You're going to have sperm and ovum mixed at about a ratio of 75,000 to 1. So 75,000 sperm per single egg. They're going to be put together in a petri dish to allow for fertilization to take place. Typically, they're going to get that egg from the mother through basically a needle that's going to suction out an egg out of the ovary. And then sometimes the number that are ovulated are going to be boosted with extra shots of FSH and LH in the female. And then on the male side, they're typically things like a sperm donor from either the actual father or from an anonymous donor sometimes can be used, but they're going to get mixed into that petri dish. They're going to be allowed to grow to the 16 cell stage. And then it's going to be implanted into the mother's uterus, hoping, or I should say it's going to be introduced to the uterus in hopes of implantation and pregnancy. Typically, normal births are going to occur in about 30% of IVF attempts, so that means IVF is about 30% successful. That is a much higher number than it used to be, however. In some places, they used to allow several different embryos to be introduced to the uterus because it was rare for one to actually implant. And so you'd go through this very expensive process and not end up with an offspring. Well, that raises a bunch of ethical questions basically on when it comes to related to the topic of abortion, where what are you doing with the ones in glass that you're allowing to develop to that 16 cell stage, but you don't introduce to the uterus? Are you introducing them to the uterus, but only one's implanting and 5 or 6 are not implanting? What becomes of those? And just a lot of things. It kind of becomes a mess when you get to that. But here in the United States, now they only allow for 2 embryos to be introduced into the uterus in the hopes that one will implant. So you got 2 in there, and each of them have a 30% chance of being successful. So it's very likely that you're actually going to be able to get one to implant just because the technology has progressed far enough to make that fairly feasible. Okay, here is what IVF looks like here. Again, they're going to take this catheter, they're going to suction out an ovulated egg cell. Sperm are going to be collected. They will be actually concentrated and washed as well. They'll remove the seminal fluid and do some things to that. They get mixed in the petri dish, allow fertilization to occur, allow them to grow, and then at that 16 cell stage, they are going to be introduced to the uterus in hopes for implantation. Okay, so that is some of the events that take place around the time of fertilization as well as at the time of fertilization. Our next lecture, which is the final lecture for our reproductive system, we'll go over in a very generic sense each of the stages